The dinner rush was just beginning when Emily tied her apron and stepped onto the floor of Willow Creek Diner. The bell above the door chimed constantly as locals and travelers pushed through, hungry and impatient. Emily carried herself with a smile that didn't quite reach her tired eyes. She'd been on her feet since dawn, balancing trays, refilling coffee cups, and pretending she wasn't drowning in overdue bills and late rent notices. For Emily, the diner wasn't just a job, it was survival. At 24, she'd learned early what it meant to live without a safety net. Raised in foster homes, she had no family to lean on, no one to catch her when she fell. Every dollar mattered, and every shift meant the difference between holding on and losing everything. That night, as the diner buzzed with clinking silverware and the low hum of conversation, the door swung open with unusual force. A man in a tailored suit stepped inside, his presence so commanding the room seemed to tilt toward him. He didn't belong in a roadside diner. He belonged in glossy magazines or on the evening news. His gold watch glinted under the fluorescent lights, and his sharp eyes swept the room like he owned it. Emily noticed the whispers ripple through the booths. "Isn't that Richard Hale?" Someone murmured. "The millionaire real estate guy." Another added. Emily vaguely recognized the name. Richard Hale was a powerful businessman, a man rumored to own half the developments in the city. She knew nothing about his life beyond the headlines, except, now, that he was standing in her section. He sat down at a booth without waiting to be greeted, tossing his phone on the table with a frustrated sigh. Emily smoothed her apron, braced herself, and walked over. "Good evening," she said warmly. "Welcome to Willow Creek Diner. What can I get you started with?" He didn't look up. "Coffee, black, and make it quick." His tone was clipped, dismissive. Emily forced her smile to stay in place. "Of course," she replied softly, jotting down the order. When she returned with his coffee, he was already frowning at his phone, tapping out impatient texts. She set the cup down gently. "Here you go, sir." He glanced at it, then at her. "It's lukewarm," he snapped, though steam curled clearly from the cup. "Do you people not know how to serve coffee that's actually hot?" Emily's chest tightened. She'd been spoken to harshly before. Customers sometimes treated waitresses like punching bags. But something about his sharp, cutting tone stung more than usual. Still, she swallowed the hurt. "I'll get you a fresh one," she said quickly, whisking the cup away. When she returned, he barely acknowledged her. Instead, he barked an order for steak and potatoes. "Medium rare, and don't mess it up." The rest of the shift unfolded painfully. He complained about the noise, the service, even the cutlery. At one point, he muttered loudly about how incompetent people seemed to be these days. Each word felt like a slap. Emily tried to remind herself he was just another customer, another challenge to endure. But beneath her calm surface, her heart raced with something unfamiliar. A strange, magnetic pull, as though his presence was stirring something she couldn't name. When she brought his meal, he pushed the plate aside after one bite. "This steak is overcooked. Do you call this medium rare?" Her throat tightened. The kitchen staff had worked hard, and she hated seeing their efforts dismissed. "I'm so sorry, sir. I can ask the cook to prepare another if you'd like." "Forget it." He tossed his napkin onto the table. "I'll eat somewhere decent tomorrow." Despite everything, Emily's compassion wouldn't let her walk away completely. She noticed the deep lines etched into his face, the tension in his jaw, the way his eyes darted restlessly, as if searching for something he couldn't find. Underneath the arrogance, he looked lonely. After he finished picking at his meal, he asked for the check. Emily placed it on the table, her fingers brushing the edge of his leather wallet as he pulled out a black credit card. She caught a glimpse of an old photograph tucked inside. A woman with gentle eyes, holding a baby in her arms. Something in Emily's chest twisted. She didn't know why, but the image felt oddly familiar, like a half-remembered dream. She looked away quickly, not wanting to intrude on someone's private memories. When he signed the receipt, he left no tip. Just a hurried scrawl of his name, Richard Hale. Emily let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding as he strode out, the door swinging shut behind him. She gathered the dishes, trying to shake off the sting of his disdain. Yet, as she cleared the table, her eyes lingered again on the memory of that photograph. The night wore on. Customers came and went, and eventually the diner quieted. Emily was wiping down the counter when the bell above the door jingled again. She looked up in surprise. Richard Hale was back. This time, he wasn't striding with confidence. His steps were slower, more hesitant. He approached the counter and cleared his throat. "Do you have a moment?" Emily blinked, uncertain. "Of course, sir. Did you forget something?" He hesitated, his expression conflicted. For the first time, the sharp edges of his arrogance seemed to soften. "I owe you an apology," he said finally. "I was rude. It's been a difficult day. That's no excuse, but I shouldn't have taken it out on you." Emily studied him, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. She nodded gently. "It happens. Thank you for saying that." He exhaled, as if relieved. But then his gaze lingered on her, his brow furrowing. "You remind me of someone," he said quietly. Emily tilted her head. "Oh?" He reached into his wallet again and pulled out the photograph she'd glimpsed earlier. He held it up. "This was many years ago. My girlfriend at the time. She disappeared before I even knew she was pregnant." His voice trembled with something unspoken. "I've been searching ever since. For the daughter I never got to meet." Emily's breath caught in her throat. Her eyes locked on the photograph. The woman's face, the curve of her smile, the warmth in her gaze, wasn't just familiar. It was unmistakable. It was her mother. Emily's knees weakened, and she gripped the counter for support. That's my mom," she whispered. Richard froze. His hand shook as the photo fluttered slightly. His lips parted, but no sound came out. "What did you say?" Emily swallowed hard. "My mom's name was Grace. She passed away when I was 12. I grew up in foster care after that. I never knew my father." The diner seemed to go silent, the world shrinking to the space between them. Richard's eyes brimmed with disbelief, then with tears he fought to control. "Grace," he whispered, almost reverently. "She never told me, He choked on the words. "Emily. You're my daughter." The room spun around her. Emily shook her head, tears filling her own eyes. "No, that can't." But deep down, in the marrow of her bones, she felt the truth. The strange pull, the inexplicable recognition, the way she'd studied his face without knowing why, it all made sense now. For a moment, neither spoke. Their emotions collided in the space between them. Shock, grief, longing, and something fragile, like hope. Richard finally reached across the counter, his hand trembling. "I don't expect forgiveness. I wasn't there. I didn't even know. But if you'll let me, I'd like to try to be something in your life." Emily's chest ached. Part of her wanted to push him away, to remind him of the years of loneliness, the birthdays spent wishing for a father she thought didn't exist. But another part of her, the part that had always yearned for connection, hesitated. Tears slid down her cheeks. "I don't know if I can just accept this. It's a lot." "I understand," Richard said softly. "Take your time. I'll be here, I promise." Something in his voice rang true, stripped of the arrogance she'd first seen. He looked at her not as a millionaire, not as a man used to power, but as a father who had just discovered the daughter he'd lost. Emily wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, torn between fear and fragile hope. Maybe we can start small. Coffee. Just coffee. Tomorrow." A smile trembled at the corners of Richard's lips, breaking through the years of hardened lines. "I'd like that," he whispered. As he left the diner that night, the bell chiming softly above the door, Emily stood motionless, her heart heavy and light all at once. For the first time in years, the emptiness inside her felt just a little less vast. She didn't know what the future held. Whether wounds could heal, whether trust could grow. But she knew one thing. Life had just shifted, forever. And it had happened over a cup of coffee in a small roadside diner.